repeatedly said that in Germany, leaders are able to rise above their ideological differences and are able to look out for national interest. But we see in the US also there's much more polarized discourse. Do you think it is because in Germany of the inherent strength of the institutions that they are able to rise above their differences, or is it the inherent value system of the society as well that makes them look out
It's
for
a
national
great question.
interest?
Each society has its own, as I said, culture, a certain way of doing things. While culture changes, it changes slowly. But the way the practices are shaped also is determined by the way the competition for power is shaped. That means the electoral system. In the US, as you rightly said, it's highly polarized, particularly even earlier, even before Trump, it was polarized. Let's make no mistake about it. During Obama time, the both houses of Congress, when Obama did not have a majority after the first 2 years of his term, they did not listen to him on any single issue. He could not do almost anything. He was winning with a clear popular mandate, but the legislature would not cooperate entirely because of polarization and populism and partisan differences, not because of honest policy approach. And Trump's time made it infinitely worse. Again, Biden time we are noticing, no matter what happens, Republican Party says we will never ever vote. Therefore, 50 votes in the Senate are always out. Unless every single Democrat is completely on board, nothing can happen. And they're finding a tremendous crisis. Right now, there's a phenomenal budgetary crisis in the United States and economic policy, etc. And next 72 hours or so could be critical. We don't know what's going to happen. That's also shaped not merely by the culture and the practices of the parties, by the electoral system. While they have a directly elected chief executive and separation of powers, the basic model they adopted for the legislature is first past the post system, the British system. Therefore, there is no reason to appeal to a wider base. There is a second reason why in the United States it became intensely toxic, this whole debate. They have an extraordinarily democratic model, the best in the world, of electing candidates. The choice of a candidate of a party is not left to party members, or anybody can become a member of a party. Nobody can stop you. You can just register yourself, any number of people. And the people who are so registered have the right to vote in a secret ballot to determine who will be the candidate. Now, who are the people who vote in the party's primary ballot, primary election? The most dedicated hardcore members of the party. Now, if the hardcore members of the party are highly polarized, the candidates emerging as they're going to be highly polarized candidates. The people who appeal to a small, narrow base, not to the broader national electorate, and they become the candidates. And because of gerrymandering, the state legislatures, unlike in India, with all our imperfections, there is a boundary commission, what we call delimitation of constituency. There is a commission headed by a Supreme Court judge. Election Commission members are there, and members of Parliament, others are also invited. While there is a political input which is necessary in constituency delimitation, it is largely done on rational principles and standard, known, transparent procedures and methods across the country. Whereas in America, if a party controls a state legislature, they can decide all the congressional boundaries in their respective states. And they do gerrymandering. They make sure that number of voters are roughly same, but it is done in a manner that your party has a clean majority wherever possible. So in such a situation, what happens? The candidates have no incentive to reach out to the other people other than their own party members. And their behavior also reflects that. You're always appealing to the base of the party, not to the society at large, not on the lookout for the country's interests. So this combination of the first past the post system in America, which India has, which Britain has, and gerrymandering of constituencies with primary elections, it became extremely toxic. So you're absolutely right, the culture of a society is important. But the way the practices emerge by law or electoral system are incredibly important. India by nature is a consensual country. Otherwise, for thousands of years, so many religions coexisting. You know, 3 major religions even today have space only in India. The Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism. Buddhism is not only in India, but Sikhism, they are almost entirely in India. 90-95% of the people practicing those are in India. Buddhism arose from India. So 4 major religions emerged from here. And Christianity and Islam, they found a very safe harbor for peaceful practice of their own religions here for millennia. The Jewish people came to India 2,600 years ago. They never faced discrimination in India. Christianity came through St. Thomas within a decade or so of Jesus Christ's crucifixion. The Syrian Christians are their legatees. There was never any discrimination. They could practice their religion peacefully. Islam came to India through Arab traders way back in 7th, 8th century. There was never any problem. So in such all this and the embrace of all philosophies, all cultures, the eclectic nature of society shows that society fundamentally in India is not a polarizing one. Despite our caste, region, religion, all these are there, is true. But fundamentally society has learned the art of coexistence. It's the politics that has not learned the art of coexistence. Politics is now shaping society sadly. Politics now injecting polarization. So culturally, Indians are more like Germans. Politically, we are driven to be more like Americans. There are many great things in America we should embrace, not the bad things of any country.